whatever I have is being put at risk on this project, and if it's not successful, I'll be looking for a job.
Why was Ted Turner, somebody that didn't really care about news, the person that like figured this all out?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. The technology is really important here. It's really one of those things where nowadays you can just launch a website and you don't have to think about building the infrastructure behind it, right? We can create a website in like an hour, and we don't have to build the internet. We don't have to build the code or any of that. It's all done. It's basically just putting it together and pressing publish. With the satellite, Ted was the second person to launch a cable channel. It was called the Superstation, and that was in '76. The first was HBO, and that was paid. So the Superstation was free. And they were essentially running old television shows that were licensed or that they owned. And then Atlanta Braves games and Atlanta Hawks games, because Ted owned both those teams, so he could do that. And I won't get into the dynamics of what those things meant because that's a whole nother podcast. However, he was looking to the future in a world where he knew that there were some issues. By licensing all that programming, that meant that those programming owners in Hollywood or the syndicates or the networks really kind of had a gun to him in the future of like, oh, we're just going to raise our rates and keep on raising them. They, for years, tried to get Congress to step in and basically stop the cable growth. And a lot of that was through because they felt that cable was taking their programming for lesser fees because they were going nationwide and paying local fees for that programming because the Superstation was out of Atlanta. I'm sorry if this is a little backwards. So I'm about to get to the point, which is the satellite with Ted looks, I think he's at a Atlanta Hawks game with his senior leadership at Turner Broadcasting. And they start talking about future channels where they can, quote, control our own destiny. And by that, I mean where they don't have to license all their programming from someone else that is going to jack up their rates or make it really hard for him to make to keep providing a valuable business for cable operators and for viewers. So they look at what's out there and they say, well, we could start a sports channel. And he realizes that'll cannibalize TBS because that's why a lot of people watch the Superstation for the Braves and Hawks games. And they know that ESPN is about to launch. And that's around 78. And then they look and they're like, what about music television? Well, they're like, who would want to watch music videos? 1981, we learned that MTV, that there's a lot of people who want to watch music videos. So they need programming that is ownable and in theory cheaper, and that they're not beholden to someone else who can continuously just raise the rights on them and can go to the government and basically end their game or make it really hard for him to operate. And so finally he says, what about news? And all of his executives kind of like look at him and they're like, is this the same guy who says no news is good news and that airs the news on TBS at 3 a.m? And they're kind of just like, what? And there's been a few people that have been pitching a cable news network to Ted for years, and forever he said, no, I don't want to be in the news business. It's all negative. And then he realized basically he had another transponder on a satellite, which is like a spot on the satellite. And he realized that this was the way to kind of control his own destiny as a media broadcasting company, and that if no one else was going to do it, he might as well do it.